Alright, this equation represents the profit a business makes at time t in months over a year. So at one, that would be the end of January. 2 is the end of February. So forth. When does a business make a maximum and minimum profit? Now, when you hear the word maximum minimum, this is amount of money. Aren't you just looking for the maximum minimum value from 0 to 12 of the graph? And the way you find that, don't you set the derivative equal to 0? And then see which is the max, which is the min? But if we're using a calculator, do we have to set the derivative equal to 0? No. Isn't there a button on your calculator to find that? There is simply a button on your calculator to find that. Now, if you were to just graph this on your calculator, alright, you would get a graph that looks something like this. From 0 to 12, you get something that looks like this. It looks something like that. That's 12 when you graph it. That is actually not that great of a graph, but it works. And then, if I want to find my maximum amount of profit, you should notice that would be here. That is your max. Your minimum amount of profit would be there. Now, how would you, using a calculator, find your maximum amount of profit, and how would you find your minimum amount of profit? There is a button that is under the trace button that says max and min. And all you do is, using that max button, you would choose left and right. You choose any values left and right of here. Got it? And then it would give you the max. And when you do that, what you would come up with is pi comma 3. Comes out nice and neat. So you actually could have done this pretty easily without a calculator. But if you use a calculator, it comes up with pi comma 3. If you do the minimum, again, you choose on each side, go left and right bound, hit enter when you hit guess, and you would come up with 3 pi comma 1. So what this is saying is, if this pi is the month, now we don't have a pi month, so that would be January, February, March, a little bit after March, so April, mid-April, because between 3 and 4, we okay with that? Somewhere in there you'd have your maximum amount of profit. 3 represents how much money you'd have. Now, not just $3, that'd be a terrible business, but probably this in thousands, $3,000 or in millions, $3 million would represent that. And your minimum amount of profit looks like would be 3 pi, which would be 9.4, which you can think about that in months, and that would be 1,000 or whatever 1 represents. That's your lowest amount of money you make per year. And that's it. So we got those two. Now if you didn't have a calculator, again, you drive it, set it equal to 0, solve it, find your max and min using first or second derivative test, you're good to go. How much do they make a year? How much do they make a year? Well, if that's how much they made after 3.14 months, that's how much they made at, not after, but at 9.4 months. Aren't you just going to add up all these incomes? Because you're making that much. And how do you add up a whole bunch of incomes? You integrate. And what are you going to integrate from? You go from 0 to 12, into the 12th month. And watch this. Just put P of t. Do you have to really write sine 1/2? I mean, t over 2x plus 2? No. That's good. It's easier just to write that. Can you do that on your calculator? Yeah, you can usually do it on function integrate, or you can do it under the trace category. It's real simple. When you integrate it, you'll get approximately 24.08. So for the whole year, that's how much profit they made. 24.8 thousand, whatever, again, let's talk about thousands, 24.08 thousand bucks they made for the whole year. The last one is, what is the average profit from September to November? Well, then you have to think of average. So first of all, average from September to November. Isn't November the 11th month? Don't you put like a 1 over, then don't you go 11 minus September? Isn't that the 9th month? Is that okay? But that's actually going to mess us up, isn't it? Because that only gives us 2 months. What's 9 minus 11 minus 9? Do you follow me? It's kind of tricky, but do you understand you actually do 11 minus 8? You follow me? Because it's kind of tricky when you're thinking word problems. It would have been easier for me to basically put 1 over 3. Do you follow me? It's a little bit tricky, but do you understand it's 3 months worth? So 1 over 3, and then what's the interval going to be? Isn't it from 8 to 11? You guys got that? And from that, this is still going to be P of t dt. And when you do that one, what you end up with, I got to do that one real quick because I think I didn't do something. So when you integrate that, you go from 8 to 11, and you should end up with from 8 to 11, you end up with 1.294. You get approximately 1.294, but then don't you have to then divide that by what? 3. So you then divide that by 3. 1.294 divided by 3 is 0.431. That would be your approximate value, the average amount of income you're making from September to November. Okay. Using your calculator, you can also do a lot of this by hand. It just might be a little bit more difficult.